Yes, hello. Welcome to the Place of Wrath and Tears, a KULT Divinity Lost actual play stream. We have a smaller game tonight because we are all fabulous people who do fabulous things. And two of those sets of fabulous things keep them away from a laptop tonight, which is perfectly well and good. It is quite literally the 21st night of September, so we will be having a oh my god, I could have made this entire thing into an Earth, Wind, and Fire pun, and now I'm so mad that I didn't. Somewhere my band instructor is like stalking me through the night, angry at me at the moment. So we are going to have a Bethany night. We are going to spend a little bit of time looking at magic and Bethany and the way these two things interact. And depending on whether or not we roll a 15 or a 9, they will either interact in parallel or in opposition. So we're all going to find that out together. So yeah, that's pretty much where we're going to be. You just saw our names a little bit ago, so not worried about that too much. Yeah, so no extra content warnings. I mean, we're going to keep it light and loosey-goosey. And we are recording this, so if we find ourselves going somewhere extremely weird, there will probably be a cut right about here that tells you that something awful is about to happen. And if there wasn't one, you don't need to get your, you can leave your pizza pockets in the freezer tonight. So, all right. Kate, last game ended with some pretty unsettling revelations for Bethany. There were some there is no good answer. Either A, they are actually federal agents, or they are pretending to be federal agents. Neither of these things is a positive answer.
Correct.
So there are things in suits, trademark, and they apparently seem to be quite directly after you. So what's going to be your response to that? If presuming you're going to have one. I mean, Bethany isn't really a sit there and wait for it to happen kind of gal.
No, she's not. And while it wasn't clear, the one of the things that was clear is that they were tied to an archon, whether or not they are directly linked to one or not. And so she's going to be a little smart, and before she goes off to, find them and Bethany at them in some capacity, I think she's going to go looking for a little bit of magical protection, because it's
okay.
To go destroy a homunculus, and it is another thing to destroy the pet of an archon, and that was already looking for you.
Yes. I can say that probably in your immediate estimate is that we're way closer to the homunculus than we are to the direct servant of the archon. That's there are creatures that are direct servants of the archon, and there may be a couple with names written on a piece of paper somewhere at work, but they're not here. So I guarantee you, we get all of these little half-sized sticky note papers from work from all the steel companies. I guarantee you I have written the weirdest shit on the yard metals graph paper than anyone else has written. So do you want to do, are you going for offense or defense? What's your plan here? I know we talked about it earlier, but now that we're on camera, let's do it again.
Feel like this is going, oh no, because it's Bethany, so she wants to go offensive, but it feels like it's smarter to play defensive at the moment because they don't have a lot of information yet. So I'm just gonna do a straight roll and see if I land high or low
Okay.
on whether or not, impulses went out. Oh, well, I rolled a 15, and now I have to decide if that's good or bad. Do that
Yeah,
first.
I have never rolled dice with no plan before in my life. Yes, that's
No.
never
Um,
know.
mm, I think that she is uh legitimately looking for something defensive, but if she sees something offensive in her research, she will get sidetracked in a heartbeat.
I understand completely. Let me get my pause.
Mm-hmm.
Let me get my copy of KULT,
Yeah.
which I put slightly far away because I am a fool. So I think that last time we agreed that you now have yourself a delightful occult library.
Yes, I do.
So how about we roll that occult library and see what we can find?
Yeah. I rolled a 12. Do I add anything to my occult library?
I do not know. All I know is that currently it's on page 94, so we will answer a bunch of questions very soon. It's probably not on your page 94. Plus reason.
Reason. Ooh, Bethany.
As long as you don't have a plus or minus 3, it's not going to affect anything.
No. I have a +0 to reason.
That's fine.
Oh yeah, so that's a 12.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you get one question. This is one of those ones where you generate a number of answers for questions. The questions you can ask. The last one is probably what we're going to go with, but let's be thorough. Which higher power does this have connections to? What do I need or need to do to exercise or control this being? Which dimension is this associated with? Or what must I do to protect myself from this?
Yeah, she's gonna start with protect myself from this. But also, boy, oh boy, does how do I control it sound fun and fascinating.
Yeah. How to hack a homunculus.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So homunculi, like, homunculus is a catch-all term for made critter that does stuff. You know, you could probably throw around the word golem if you wanted to, but homunculus is vaguer and less religiously grounded, so I like that term more. So it's kind of that, like, homunculus is kind of a catch-all word for things that were made out of, like, creatures that were animated from stuff and then imbued with an amount of will. So what makes them not hard to defend against, but vaguely annoying, is that a majority of what you would want to do to make a defensive thing is either to defend yourself from the material of a threat or from the intent of the threat. So if, for example, I don't know, let's make up something wacky, like an angel made of fire.
Okay.
Was coming after you, a la the classic, like, you know, Archangel Michael flaming sword, da 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 da. If that was happening, you could ward yourself against fire. Or you could ward yourself from creatures from Metropolis, or, you know, you could try to ward yourself from creatures connected to that Archon. So homunculi, however, because they're such a grab bag, are difficult to do that with. So typically what works, but also overall homunculi are not powerful. You know, you're not gonna get. You don't make a David out of a homunculus.
Right.
You know, there are natural limitations on making Lego servants. So typically your basic warding doodad is going to be enough to get started. You know, so in your father's books, there is a vexing abundance of information on this subject. You know, small physical objects of protection are kind of one of the things that generally everybody that even learns remotely about magic, that's usually like the first thing they make. Well, sometimes they try to make a monster or summon something, and once they get out of the hospital, the next thing they make is very often some kind of an amulet or a protective doodad. So like every magical tradition in this world and every other has protective thing very early in the curriculum. Because a majority of your reference texts are metropolitan, they are more focused on interacting with metropolitan things. Luckily, based off remembering the fingerprint that had the symbol of an archon kind of built into it, it is safe to say that this creature, if not excuse me, big yawn, if not composed of metropolitan stuff, is animated via metropolitan magic. So great. You've got several options for that. The two that kind of that look, there's a bunch of things you can do to ground. You know, there's a lot of reference, you know, for how to inscribe various and sundry forms of warding circles into the ground to keep things in, to keep things out, to keep things in and out. Da 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 da. You can do a bunch of that. But in terms of portable protection, it seems like there are generally two ways to do it, at least with your information available to you. One of them is actually like an embroidered piece. And that makes sense because, once again, that a lot of this information is from the Royal Phoenix Society, and so a lot of what they did was informed by their needs and desires, which means that not every single one of them wanted an 8.5-inch pectoral amulet hanging from their chest at all times. So there are several different versions, and when you look at them, what you recognize is, if not exactly in terms of function, at least in form, was many of the vaguely Masonic looking extra pieces of cloth that they had with their suits the night that we killed everybody.
Right.
The night of the people exploding. So, I mean, clearly there are limits to how well those work, or maybe you guys were far beyond what they were designed to deal with. But they require a lot of time. Because that's one of these things where, you know, we've talked a couple times about throwing resources at a problem to make the magical skill requirements lower. This is one that uses both resource and labor. You know, it's the mechanics triangle: fast, cheap, and good. Pick one, or pick two.
Have two. I have three.
Yeah. So
the triangle.
So this is definitely the the only piece out of this you get to pick is good for the embroidery, because it requires a significant amount of labor. Like the way to make it right is you've got to like collect the raw materials. If you're really doing it right, you're growing where the hell do you get like linen from?
Flax.
From flax. That's what I thought, but I second guessed myself.
Flax.
Like you'd have to be growing the flax yourself and harvesting it yourself and doing the innumerable processes that this machinist and blacksmith does not know about to turn it into cloth. You know, that's not something you can bang out in an afternoon.
No.
And the other option is extensively etched metal. Now, metal is one of those things that's interesting because the process of heating it and melting it and casting it, you can kind of do a lot of magical resetting by this purification of heat and energy process. So out of the two, now being able to sew protective wards into your clothes sounds like something you don't want to forget. So we're going to put a bookmark in that page.
Oh, Bethany has had an entire other thought.
Okay.
How good it is, not for now, but for later, and involving some research, which is magical tattooing. Keep it on your skin always.
Okay.
But yes,
it's an established tradition in the real world, so I don't.
But yeah, so she's just having, that was a ping in her brain of like, oh yes, on clothing, that's good. But this is a thing you don't take off. So
yeah, that would definitely be like a old school, like Bronze Age ding 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 tattoo experience.
Awesome. Second book time.
Yeah. I like my tattoos, but I don't like my tattoos that much. So yeah, so you've got a couple of books spread out in front of you in kind of that classic sort of research sprawl. One of there's a couple that are kind of the more formal reference texts that look like they were actually like bound on purpose, and they're very nice. One of the other ones is one of your father's infuriating notebooks that are nothing but references and notes and shorthand and things scribbled down margins, and they're full of information, but the problem is that they are your father's untrammeled stream of consciousness thoughts regarding these subjects. So while I'm sure that they do give you a powerful sense of closeness to Malice, the information you get from that closeness is vague, to say the least. But in this one, next to kind of some of their notations for engraving, for the amulet, even though it may not be a circle that hangs from your neck, we'll just call it an amulet. For making these amulets, there is a name. Once again, felled by my own weakness, which is names. You have names. There are names in your head, Benjamin Rogers. What are you doing? You know, this is one of those things where it's like, you know, I think about stuff and I completely forget. Jared Jewelers. About Welker and Sons.
There you go.
Welker and Sons Jewelry. The name, okay, let's do some yes-anding. The name, reading it, pulls a memory from your youth to the surface. You're fairly certain that that's a name that you've seen before. What is Bethany's childhood/adolescent memory that's connected to this jeweler?
The box. It has a very specific box, the way that all of their jewelry arrives. Which isn't just the plain, like, sort of flocked plush, black velvet, pop it open, there's another plush, black inside and sparklies. Instead, it's the box itself that it comes in before the jewelry box, but the actual physical, like, box it comes in before that is a deep, like, gunmetal gray base. And the lid is also gunmetal gray, but the sides of the lid are cream, and then there's a like an inset framing also in the cream, probably with some little frills, and then the name of the jewelers also in cream, really emblazoned upon it. So it's very striking.
Yeah.
Whenever it comes out. And when Bethany was, 9, and some boxes came, and one of them was in there, and she really desperately wanted to know what was inside because it was very pretty. And it was whisked away because she was not allowed to know what it was. But she really, like, since then, she has wanted to open one of those boxes. And I think that maybe all the kids probably would have done it for Matthew too. On our 16th birthday, got a piece of jewelry of some kind. Like, Matthew probably got cufflinks, but like really, finely done and fancy and engraved. And Bethany and Clara and Izzy got, I'm gonna say, bracelets. But that was like our 16th birthday present, was a piece of jewelry from this place. And so she distinctly remembers that being the first time she ever got to, like, open that box.
Like a tennis bracelet?
Yeah, like a little tennis bracelet thing.
Okay.
You open the box, and inside there's like a plush satin thing, and set in the plush satin is the actual little jewelry box, which is also on the outside the same gunmetal gray. And you pop it open, and it is black instead of cream. So and but it embossed on the top of the actual jewelry box is like a WS in a little circle with an ampersand, like a little signet situation.
Yeah. So kind of like that piece of jewelry was almost like, it probably also meant that the clothes that you were allowed to wear probably changed also on the 16th birthday, probably, bolder heels and some more adventurous cuts of dress and things like that.
Yeah, it was sort of slightly between, like, gearing up to coming out sort of time.
Yeah. It definitely, in the age that the Van Horsts grew up, that would also regrettably be the time where people were talking about who was going to get married to who.
Oh, absolutely.
If not altogether making the plans, they were the initial negotiations were begun.
It was the very beginnings of that. Yes.
Yeah. That's probably one of the first times that Bethany remembers seeing her father be very conflicted. because there was well, that was after he was hurt. But definitely there was it was a complicated time for him. That's when things don't go the way you expect them to, you continually kind of find those tripwires of should have gone this way or should have gone that way for years. And after your father died, did you have to handle his personal jewelry? Did he have some of those boxes with his things in them?
He did, and I think that Bethany would have consulted, but I think that St. John would have handled it.
Probably.
Acting as his personal valet who, knew what he liked and where, and sort of taking that idea up again. Yeah.
Okay. There is a memory of a body laid out in a small brick crematorium, hands over chest, surrounded by flowers. It's sometimes the days that you wake up and you say everything has changed today, and then when you're at the end of the day you go, everything has changed today, but none of it is the way I thought it was going to change. And Malice's funeral was certainly one of those days.
Yeah, Bethany rubs at the scar on her forehead.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, it's a complicated name. It's definitely associated with your family and full of memory and other things. So, now clearly this is a kind of place that even a Van Horst has to make an appointment. You could probably walk in and shop around, but if you really wanted to have something made, you would absolutely have to make an appointment. However, the not as old as you mentally expected to be voice, it's still a mature, human adult male voice. But in your head, you are expecting an old man.
Right.
This is the voice of a person who is robustly into their middle age. This is that kind of 1950s American male. Veins full of steak, sort of. And when he hears your name, there is a pause. And he says, "Miss Van Horst, I am so happy to hear from you. We, of course, as always, will be delighted to attend to whatever needs you have. Would you like us to come to the house, or would you like to visit us at our place?"
Bethany literally racks her head to see if she can remember them someone from there ever coming to the house to see Dad, to see Papa.
You don't remember it,
Mm-hmm.
So the offer is a little weird,
Yeah.
but it's probably literally like attempting to overserve.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the gesture of whatever you need us to do to keep us in your Rolodex, we will do. If that means we have to drive out there with a trunk full of samples or anything else, then we will absolutely do that. You know,
I
you only lose the Van Horsts once. So
think Bethany decides to go to the shop, actually. And she'll take David David will driver or whatever, but she'll make an appointment to go.
yeah,
And, you know, somewhere in the conversation mention, I remember some of the work you did for my father, and I believe you did some specialty pieces for him, and I am interested in something like that. She is something to sort of hint at what she expects that they have done for him.
there is a pause.
Mm-hmm.
There is a capital P
Mm-hmm.
italics pause
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
where there is a rapid
Mm-hmm.
reconfiguration of thoughts.
Uh-huh.
No, this was definitely someone who thought he was going to be selling somebody like a gift or personal jewelry or something. Now he has to be like, oh shit, like we are in a different place here.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a pause, and you can kind of almost, you can almost hear his mental foot slam on the clutch and like change gears, and and he says, well, of course, absolutely, we would be more than happy to continue providing your family with any and all custom work that you might need, and we are happy to fulfill any needs, both social and esoteric that may come to mind. And we are I and when I tell him, my father will be honored to know that we are the ones that came to the mind of the Van Horsts under such a circumstance.
If you have any, or if your father has any of the sketches of that sort of work that you did for my father, I would be very interested in looking at it as a sample inspiration.
I will speak with my father and see what things he has.
I'll be bringing things as well.
Very good. It was an understanding that we would not be retaining copies of a majority of the designs after the commissions were finished. And so while we have some notes regarding processes, we do not have very many actual designs. Your father was very firm in returning home with any and all sketches that he provided.
Well, I'll have to look through his things and see if I find anything with your watermark on it.
Of course, absolutely. And if you do not, then I'm sure that we will be able to work together to come up with whatever
I'm sure my father
personalized work you may find.
will differ in some capacity, but I would like to see your evolution through the work. And yes, please let me know if that changes the needed time of the appointment.
No. Bethany, you're a Van Horst.
She was literally like, "Is this an after hours thing?" And I'm expecting him to say no. She is being a polite and saying, this is the appointment and great.
You also know the way someone sounds when they cancel their day on your behalf.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because you can hear because you know how someone sounds like when they're like, I'm looking at my schedule and I know what time I can see you.
Mm-hmm.
And here are those times acceptable to you? And then there's like an escalation of troubleshooting if they don't work.
Mm-hmm.
And then there is the like, I will be calling everyone else on my day planner for that day, and I will be canceling 100% of those appointments. And that's what you heard.
Great. Fantastic.
Was the cancel everything appointments.
Cancel everything. Gonna go.
Yeah. So there's some... Go.
I was going to say that information, I think that Bethany is going to try and see if Papa has any of the sketches anywhere. She's more interested in like what is the like melding of the esoteric with an aesthetic design situation than like other things. Trying to get an idea of like what she can have made and like how small it can be, and or how large it needs to be, or like, is it a ring? Is it a bracelet? Is it a brooch? Is it a, pocket watch? Is it she's just trying to see like what items were made and like how it would sort of work in the aesthetics of it. More than the like the actual process. She is interested in like aesthetics.
Well, thankfully, most of the metals and materials that would be used for magic are also the same ones that are used in jewelry.
Mm-hmm.
Silver has plenty of, magical power, so does gold, so does platinum, electrum, the entire run of gemstones ever discovered by man all have their uses. There are some oddball alloys. There are some oh, excuse me. There are some brasses and some bronzes that have some eyebrow raising components. There is a exceptionally long you almost think that you're reading an argument. But apparently there is something that is called, let me check and make sure I know what the hell I'm talking about. Yeah. Arsenical copper, which is copper that's alloyed with fucking arsenic that's used in some things. And apparently, based off the notes and based off the way that you have extensive experience in watching your father not have an argument, you definitely feel like maybe this is one of those arguments that Malice and St. John had every day until but clearly there are fucking opinions. So it's also one of the oldest forms of copper that was used. So yeah, it's you find some notes. It seems that the thing that's the problem at this point, Bethany, is the complexity of the design is significant.
Right.
and the capacity of the human hand and eye to engrave it as precisely as it requires is limited.
Right.
Now, you've spent time with your brother, you've seen some of the presentations about some of the machines that are being developed and invented, and they are very interesting. And so kind of in your head, you go, in a couple of decades, we could probably make these really, really small. But right now, this is still a process that is by hand, individually done. And this is a craftsman with a jeweler's loop and the little hand engraving tools. And so it's you're kind of you're limited to kind of sort of like, I don't know, like maybe 2 inches diameter, like a brooch.
Okay.
So it's a sizable necklace or a brooch or a pocket watch or, if you, it's anywhere that Kate could imagine a piece of chunky jewelry,
Right.
a slightly chunky piece of jewelry, it will work.
Okay.
So, I mean, it's not so big that, it's like, dear God, what is that? But, thankfully, the Van Horsts are of a time and place and social class where wearing jewelry is not a surprise.
Yeah.
So.
Right.
But they're imagine in your head, the keys of Solomon, the goetic sigils, any made up gobbledygook that's based off of those things.
Yeah.
It's the circles and the squares and the triangles and the geometry and, tiny little words written in Latin and circles and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Okay.
Bethany has some ideas. One of them is wild.
Okay, I love wild.
Yeah. She's gonna, I guess just gonna go to her appointment whenever that is. And she has firstly, she's like, I do have a personal, like, a jewelry commission that I would like done, which is a ring that is a small gold ring that is inlaid with white gold in the shape of like a stem with leaves, and the centerpiece is a ruby surrounded by garnets looking like a rose. So that is a ring she wants.
Okay.
That's just normal jewelry.
Yes.
That is what she would like as a normal thing. She has some designs for brooches for herself and for Clara that are like big chunky flashy jewels on the front, and all of the esoterica's actually underneath the gems in the backing plate, like facing forward.
Okay.
As like an idea. So it's underneath, and like some of the gems are specifically like in actually the esoterica bits, and some of it's just sort of hiding it.
Okay.
As a like thing.
That sounds fine. It's just I'm having an aphantasia moment. So
yeah. I think for Matthew, she gets a pocket watch somewhere in the years. And then she has something that's truly wild that she's like, this might not work, but I would like to try, and I think that it's interesting. Which is a necklace that the chain itself is the esoterica. is the shape.
Ooh.
It's a big circle. There are squares in it in places. There are like bits of jewelry that like gems that hang in certain places that are parts of the points of what it would be. So it is essentially a hidden symbol that is in fact like a good 18 inches of chain, but the chain itself, like she's like, I understand this will take time because this is making links. Like this is because some of them are squares and some of them are not. And so that is her truly wild, like, but you know, from what I've seen of your work, I bet you're up to the task. Like, she's like, this one's an experiment. Like,
yeah,
or daring.
I am gonna need Kate to give me a die roll.
Okay.
I've got no fucking idea what it is.
I'm gonna
but
roll dice.
the die roll is how well can Bethany lay out such a non-standard piece of magic.
Well, I rolled an 18.
Do you have any stat that's a -4?
No, I don't have.
Okay.
No -4s.
Okay, so then it doesn't matter because we can't get it below a 15.
Yeah, no, I rolled a 19. There's nothing. I have a plus in soul, which is probably what I'd need for it. So if you would like, that's a 22.
See, I was actually going to say reason because to me that's like that's a
yeah, that's a 0.
That's
reason.
not a soul it out. That's a sit down with like
it's a sit down and do
paper. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a 0. So yeah, so
cigarettes and coffee and a compass.
Yep.
But
so
yeah, it looks good on paper. I mean, like they are not professional sketches.
No, they're not.
You know, definitely there's some mess, but in terms of the idea, you think you've communicated
good
the idea fairly well. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I'm seeing one of those chains that's been flattened. So like every link has a flat piece on it, and just lots of little etchings.
Yeah,
all over those flats.
In the flat pieces, and like at some points, like, you know, the big, you know, 5 compass points or whatever, they're bigger like chunks, and there's a gem in it, and like, yeah, it's that sort of like if you laid it out and then you looked at it, if you knew what a thing was and you laid it out and you looked at it with your eyes crossed, you could make all the other lines that sort of exist in it appear based on like it's written around it and in it.
You know, the thing that popped into my mind was like, it sounds like a piece of the crown jewels. It just ridiculously elaborate. And then I was like, so yeah, it's the first piece of royal jewelry for the new kingdom of Metropolis. Like that's what this is.
Yeah. Like
yeah, it's like your vizier's necklace. Assuming it's for Bethany.
Bethany's not sure yet who it's for. It is an experiment of does it work?
Okay.
Like that was her really like, she was like, we have some basic, like these are the things that like Papa would get from you. They're pretty tried and true. You know how to do them. This is not weird. But yeah, the necklace is a will it work situation, and she's not sure who it's for. It's more a test of like not just their current skill. Like she knows how skilled they are at things they did for her father, but it is also a test of their current skill of like what she would want to do moving forward, because she's not Papa and she's not the Royal Phoenix Society. But she is interested in sometimes money buys you stuff quick. Like she's a fan Horst. She knows very well that money can buy you good and quick and good. But money can also buy you innovation.
Yes.
She wants to know if they can continue the partnership innovatively.
Okay.
she's legitimately not sure if like it will work as a thing, but she would like it to, and she thinks it will, and she thinks it's more interesting.
Yeah, totally. I mean, to me, Ben, coming from a manufacturing background, this is one of those moments where, you know, the boss comes out of his office with a stack of papers this high, and there's me and another Ben at my work, and we're the weird problem solvers. And he would call us together, and he would like put the papers down, and say, he wouldn't say this because he has more of a genteel demeanor than this, but essentially like, I don't give a shit how hard this looks. I need you to make it happen because we cannot tell this client no.
Yep, that's what Bethany
Like,
wants. That's
yeah, that
she gave it to them, one, because she thinks it's neat, two, because she thinks it's possible, and three, because she wants to see if they can do it.
yeah.
This is also the big test of, yeah, you cleared your schedule for me, and I didn't just come and want like a few things. I want you to do something truly impressive. And if you can, you know, I'll know that.
Yeah. Okay.
And it's also like, of the other things that she ordered, you know, she expects them to be fairly standard and whatever, but for the necklace, it is definitely a like, it is a money is no expense situation. Like,
yeah.
that's a, you know, I expect these other things in a timely fashion, and that last one, call me when you're ready.
Yes. Definitely. Okay. So is there anything you want to do before we have the meeting?
I don't think so. I think she has like gathered up all of her things prepared. Like, she has sketches of Papa's stuff, she has sketches of the stuff that she wants that are like, do this under this and blah 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 this, and referencing like whatever she has from like the processes that she's seen in his books about what they did, of like suggestions of what she thought they were. Like, she's basically made a little project portfolio for them to arrive with.
Yeah.
And yeah, is ready to take David and go to the meeting.
Yeah. So do you think that you find David, or do you have to like call for him?
I think that we probably have been at the house long enough that David isn't quite as like presently around, and she's not gonna like go down to the kitchens or whatever. She's not gonna go looking in that way, but she will like call for him to say, I've made an appointment to go to this jeweler's at such and such time, in a way that implies, and you will drive me there. Like,
yes.
Yeah.
Well, it probably goes through the major domo, right?
Yeah, it
like
would.
That's what
I've done this, and like, yes, and you know, and at that point she would also be like, and I expect David to drive with me there, like as our driver.
Yeah. And there's the major domo isn't scandalized that any other thing might happen, but definitely one of those like, well, of course, you know, David's gonna fucking drive you. Like, this isn't a discussion.
It is his job. He will be doing his job. He is our driver.
Yes.
Yeah, so it's much. I've made an. So what she actually says to the major domo is like, I've made an appointment at such and such time for the jewelers. Tell David to have the car ready. Like, that's all the order effectively is. There's no like, ask him to this, none of that. It is, he is the driver. Tell them to make the car ready. Like, just tell David to make.
Correct.
Boom. And so
that is and lo and behold, David makes the car ready. He actually, David does have kind of an arguably formal driver's outfit, which he doesn't wear all the time. I mean, he is always in, at the very least, a dress shirt and slacks. But now, he's kind of recentered himself in his role as driver.
Mm-hmm.
And so now he does have his, suit jacket and slacks and everything else, like the classic black and whites of service.
Mm-hmm.
He's now back in, and it's an interesting bookend because it feels like this is how we were introduced to David.
Mm-hmm.
And then things got weird, and now it's almost like this is now a return to normalcy.
Mm-hmm.
It's like both of you are very different
Yep.
than when the story started, but now here in this moment, David brings the car around to the front of the house.
Mm-hmm.
And he gets out and he opens the door for you, and if you hand him, if you've got all of the stuff tucked away in a piece of luggage or a handbag or whatever, if you hand it to him, he puts it in the trunk and does
Yeah.
all of those little things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like a portfolio case.
Okay.
It's like a short one, like not quite a briefcase, but definitely like, yeah, off in the trunk.
It feels very pleasantly mundane.
Mm-hmm.
Just all of this is such an old and established ritual
Mm-hmm.
that this is the nice part about being home.
Mm-hmm.
This is the part that feels good. These rituals that only work at home.
Mm-hmm.
Like David can bring the car around to the front of the Tropicana, and yeah, that's all well and good, and that's great, but it's not your house.
Yeah.
The gravel sounds a certain way in the driveway. The crackle crunch of this gravel, and you don't even have to look outside. You just know the acoustics
Mm-hmm.
of yes, there it is. I can hear it at this decibel level. That means now is time for me to pick up my
Mm-hmm.
case and walk outside.
Yeah. Mm.
So
It's also very nice for Bethany for a moment because up until she was about 16 or 17, yes, there was the bring the car around, but probably Papa ordered it and we went off with Sophia or somebody to go do something and we'd go do it together.
mhm.
After By the time Bethany was 21, she wasn't leaving the house anymore. So she'd just hear the car go for other people.
Ooh.
And even before we left for the Tropicana, like the end with Izzy, the whole meeting of David was going to the hospital because of Izzy's arm. um,
Yeah.
uh, and so that was like everyone together. There really hasn't been a lot of, probably a little bit between that and going to the Tropicana, but there hasn't really been a lot of like, I'm going to do this, you know, I've decided this, tell David to bring the car around. Like there hasn't been a lot of that for Bethany. So it is in some way comfortable in being at home, but it's getting to do things that she didn't get to do before.
Yeah.
Like this is something that is new in a good way, and in the same way that like Bethany, when they first got home, was worried and felt that like she was going to be put back into her room where she wouldn't leave it. It feels incredibly freeing to just look at the major domo and say, I've made an appointment, tell David to make the car ready. you know
Yeah.
and go. She hasn't gotten to do that very often, and that is a thing where it is, of course, and it's comfortable, and that's exactly how she acts about it, but also there is a tiny little thrill of like being allowed.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And honestly, Bethany, you could tell David to take you to the airport.
I could, yes.
You know, you could tell David to take you to the airport, and you could be on a plane to Costa Rica
Hmm.
in an hour,
I could.
and no one could stop you.
Yes. And that is one of the times I think that like Bethany's power in Elysium isn't fettered by who she is. Like all of the power that she should have by her name has been
Mm-hmm.
by who she actually is until now.
Yeah. Now you are a Van Horst. You're a grown ass Van Horst trademark.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So as David drives down
Mm-hmm.
Route 30 going towards Pittsburgh,
Mm-hmm.
there's a couple of spots where you could turn.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Route 30 is a fairly major road and it connects to other major roads. So there's a couple of spots where you see like some signage, some turn-off signage that you could go somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you could turn this way and start heading south towards like West Virginia.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you did this and this and this, you could kind of get aimed towards Washington, D.C.
Hmm.
You know, if you really wanted to, you could head north for a little bit and get on I-80 and drive east to New York City.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
so does it give you like, is it a thrill? Is it uncomfortable? Is this an unpleasant level of freedom?
It's no, I think it's not unpleasant because she knows she isn't going to do it. The freedom of
Okay.
possibility is different than the freedom of actuality.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's one thing to go, oh, I'm out here and I could go do this, but I have an appointment and I'm going to the appointment because I want to, and it's this appointment that I've made. And that's sort of the thing that is more affirming is I could go anywhere and I could do anything because if I told David to drive, he would drive.
It would.
But I want to go do this. Like Bethany's actively excited about this new design idea. Um, and she does want that ring and she does want the brooches. And she has some things she wants to do at home,
Mm-hmm.
like at midnight or 3 a.m. when the staff is asleep.
Yeah.
Kind of time when it's going to be weird to go out to the middle of your drive and invisibly draw like sigils at the gate.
Yeah, no, that's totally normal.
you know um and so she doesn't so she yeah, I think for the first time it's easier to want to stay when you can go.
Okay.
He's never like been allowed to go anywhere alone or have those decisions or have those whatever, and so she's had to fight for all of the ones that she could make. And so she wants to enact her plan. Like she wants to see what will happen. with this. But she also does make note of where we turn off to go to DC in case she has to dissolve some homunculi in the government, specifically.
Yeah. Just doing this to the road sign as you drive
Kind of.
past.
She's definitely doing the like how many miles and doing a mental calculation of like, we should fly. If we're going to DC, we should fly.
It's like us like right now going to DC, like I live 20 minutes away from where the Van Horsts live.
Right.
Like for me to get to DC is probably like 5 hours
Mm-hmm.
because we don't hurry. I'm
Right.
not a hurry driver.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that if you take away the roads, the major like highways, it's probably 6 hours, maybe 7.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's a full day.
It's a day. But I'd charter a plane and then I'd go to it and it would leave when I was ready, so I wouldn't have to do a lot of airport waiting. And then
No, yeah, be there in 45 minutes.
exactly, so should fly. But yeah, she definitely eyes the road and does a lot of mental math and decides that if she needs to go to DC to control and or dissolve some homunculi, flying is the way to get there.
Yeah. And you absolutely positively have to kill every homunculi on the room. Charter a plane.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Destroy all the homunculi in the government and therefore save the country.
Yes. Totally. The Van Horsts are going to save America. Absolutely. That's a thing that's absolutely totally going to happen.
Oh.
We did it, Squidward. We did it, Patrick. We saved the city.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Like a kaiju.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, downtown Pittsburgh. David at the end of the day, like David is a war angel.
Mm-hmm.
And he's there's a really fantastic predator drone pun that somewhere I have not ready to make it, but it's there.
Okay.
Uh, you know, he's a lot of things, but kind of like at the end of the day, the spirit that's driving the whole thing is still kind of a dorky 20-something American male.
Mm-hmm.
And so when a dorky 20-something American male strives to be helpful,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of the ways that happens is highlighting things that could happen.
Mm-hmm.
So, while you are driving a couple of times, David tries to be helpful or empowering, depending on what kind of a mood you're in, or is just being a pain in the ass. Because he says things like, well, we're only going to be 5 minutes away from Kaufman's, that's whose flagship store is in Pittsburgh and is kind of one of the major department stores.
Mm-hmm.
So he kind of gives you some of those, like, these are places that you could go if you told me to take you. Sort of, it's like, well, while you're here by yourself in the city, do you want to go anywhere else? It would be okay if you told me to take you somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
You can't say something weird like, you're allowed to give me instructions, right? But, he does a couple of times make a comment, like that.
Yeah. And I think Bethany definitely considers them, and I don't know, one of them is potentially like, oh, maybe after. for sure. Like, I think she will like post if the meeting goes well and she feels like celebrating, they will not be going straight home. She'll go do
Okay.
something fun because she can.
Totally.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Okay, yeah. I looked at I wanted to see a couple of things about Kaufman's real quick, and I just got hit with a piece of Pittsburgh like memory.
Mhm.
The downtown Kaufman's has this fantastically huge clock that's visible from the street, but it's like on street level, and it's
Mhm.
got all of the what is it called? New Empire, like the pre-1920s, the Gilded Age stuff.
Mhm.
And it had a lot of the Gilded Age,
Yeah.
furniture on. It's very pretty. Anyway,
Yeah.
look up Big Clock Kaufman's.
I will. Mhm.
So
Mhm.
yeah, it's however, the
Mhm.
place that you go to, it's not in a residential, but it's very close. It's in a smaller, quieter part of town.
Mhm.
I want to probably guess it doesn't matter, but probably maybe Squirrel Hill sounds like the right parts of town. Um, Erica will have an opinion.
Mhm.
Um, but it's a little place. It has a little sign. It's one of those places where if someone walked in off the street, as long as they looked like the right kind of person, it wouldn't be a problem.
Mhm.
But certainly, strangers just walking in is not how they do their business.
Right.
You know,
Mhm.
if you walk in unexpectedly
Mhm.
to Welker and Sons, you had better be like recognizable from the newspaper
Mhm.
if you want service.
Mhm.
But that's not a Van Horst problem.
Mhm.
So, the lights are on. There are some. It's very understated.
Mhm.
So they have a couple of pieces. They don't have the full window.
Mhm.
They have the little
Mhm.
display cases almost. They have like two of them, and there's like a full set of pearls and diamonds there. And
Mhm.
there's some masculine pieces, a pocket watch and some cufflinks, and essentially one of those like, you know, come in and buy one of everything, and you'll look very fancy, sort of.
Mhm.
But the sign says by appointment only,
Mhm.
and it's one of these really nice like carved wooden signs. So there's a little bit of scroll work, and it says thank you underneath, and it's got the
Yeah.
leading down off the Y.
Mhm. And I think Bethany made a point of wearing her tennis bracelet to the meeting.
Okay.
That's from there. Like,
Yeah. I presume she knocks, or she doesn't seem like she'd send David to knock. That doesn't
no,
seem like. No.
no.
You knock,
Mhm.
and there's a pause. David chuckles about something. Like there's this kind of like, it's a little mean, just kind of like a sort of sort of noise, and then the door opens. And Isaiah Welker is there, the man you talked to on the phone.
Mhm.
um, and he, you know, looks at you, recognizes you, please do come in.
Mhm.
Um, holds the door long enough for if you told David to come in that he would.
I don't think so.
I don't think so either. Doesn't seem like
So
a
I think
David.
David's staying in the car situation, It is partially there were homunculi asking about me in town, so if there are homunculi asking about me in town, David can fuck them up.
Yeah.
um, but unless he like War Angel sensed out about something bad being in the shop, no, she would not.
No, it was a human shithead laugh.
Yeah.
It was pure like he noticed something that entertained him. It was purely that.
Mhm.
And so the there is a feeling of Central Europe in
Mhm.
the building. It has that kind of like northern Italy to Germany, that lots of hardwoods. The rooms are somewhat small, but they're very comfortable and everything is richly and warmly colored. You
Yeah.
know, the space is used efficiently, but all of it is used elegantly.
Mhm.
Lots of little drawers and things like that.
Nice.
So, yes.
Mhm.
There is only one room where people generally are. So it's
Mhm.
not like there's a meeting room. This is,
Mhm. The room.
the sales room, the meeting room, the everything room.
Yeah.
Um, but there's a table, there's a couple of chairs out. Um, Isaiah Welker, holds the chair out for you. All of the proprieties are met. And there are some sample pieces out, clearly. There's
Mhm.
probably 2 dozen various pieces of jewelry that are kind of sitting off to the side.
Mhm.
The samples and things like that. He sits you down, asks after you, kind of does a little bit of the small talk.
Mhm.
Um, and then he looks up and kind of looks a little bit behind you, and his face like drains of color,
Mhm.
not in a horror movie way, but in a like, oh God,
Mhm. Mhm.
slightly mortified,
Mhm.
and his demeanor breaks a little bit.
Mhm.
And he says, "Dad, I would have got that." Like there's that
Uh-huh.
little break, that little ensigns
Uh-huh.
shows up,
Yep.
and
Mhm.
um, Andrew Welker comes from around the back room with a little coffee service.
Mhm.
So there's some cream and sugar and a little pot of coffee and some coffee cups and things like that.
Mhm. Yeah.
And he says, if he's like, if this coffee and these cups were good enough for her father, then they're good enough for her. Calm down. Essentially, like, clearly you are now dealing with two people where the elder is old enough to be familiar,
Mhm.
and the younger is still maintaining the highest of decorum.
Mhm.
And so he's just the right age, that right like early middle age, to be absolutely scandalized by the familiar way in which his father has been acting lately. But, Bethany recognizes kind of the way it is,
Mhm.
that he is what the old man is doing is he is saying, we have worked with your family.
Mhm.
You are familiar to me because I have been engaged in your family lineage for many decades.
Mhm.
you
Yes.
know
Mhm.
so
Yeah.
he brings down, and the coffee cups and the saucers come out, and cream and sugar, and he's just, they're very polite, they're very nice. um Isaiah keeps trying to keep things very formal, You know, very much like he's trying to do everything that his father has taught him to do while his father profoundly undermines everything he taught him to do.
Uh-huh.
Like,
I think Bethany has the coffee. I mean, she definitely has the coffee. I think she lets him be very formal through her like description of the ring that she wants.
mhm,
That's like a normal jewelry thing, and that's fine
yeah,
to like in her mind. She's like, "This is fine to be very formal. I'm coming and I'm ordering a piece, and it's uh, like pear-shaped garnets around a like circle cut ruby, blah, 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 little she does a whole little like, "This is what I'm thinking," and but small and very delicate and not like a big chunky piece, and a whole little descriptor and whatever, and lets him do the whole very formal thing, and then, coffee, and once that one is settled and she's moving on to the esoterica, she starts to, like, slide into the more informal of the, like, father and, like, try to, like, bring him along into it because she's like, "This is the part where I need that connection to exist." Like,
mhm.
"This is the part where where what you are offering, sir, is useful." Like, "I've done the thing to try to make your son comfortable, and I am here to be like, these are the things that I was thinking of," you know, um, as you can see, my sketches are not I'm not a draftsman or in any way, um, and she gives over the, like, brooch and the brooches and the pocket watch, sketches first, um, with a very much like, "And do you think you could handle this order for me in the way that you would have for my father," etc. Um, and then that, however, like she's waiting for that reaction before she brings out her very weird showstopper.
This is a really interesting conversation.
Hmm.
I'm gonna kind of get meta, like up here for a minute, and then we'll come
Yeah,
back down.
for
In
sure.
1957, a lot of shit is going down in America.
Oh yeah.
Like, desegregation begins in
Hmm.
1957.
Hmm.
I might be off by a year or two, but desegregation is current.
Yeah, desegregation's current. Depending on where you are, it was earlier.
Yeah. Like the civil rights movement is gaining steam.
Mhm.
It is both in and entering crucial, critical, transformative years.
Yep.
Like,
Yep.
there are a lot of things that are happening in America, and a lot of them are extremely uncomfortable
Hmm.
for most Americans to talk about.
Hmm.
So everybody has kind of developed the ability to have a conversation without saying the awkward parts.
Uh-huh.
You know,
Hmm.
like, I'm sure that you and I could accurately simulate a half an hour conversation about desegregation that never says the word black or a euphemism for Black American.
Yes, or what would have
Like,
been appropriate term at the time, uh,
yes, uh, uh,
and
like
the
we could
inappropriate.
probably
Yeah.
simulate that conversation talking about desegregation without ever mentioning that Black people are involved in it.
Oh, yeah,
You know,
probably.
it's that profound capacity for avoiding the uncomfortable parts of the conversation while still having a functional conversation.
Mhm.
This is part of that skill set that is being applied now.
Mhm.
Everybody is aware that we're talking about magic.
Yes.
No one mentions the word magic.
Correct.
Yes.
Correct.
Um,
It is very much in the, like, specialty pieces you made for my father, uh, you know, interesting esoterica, bloody bloody, like, your engraving lines are so fine and detailed, and,
yes. Handwork,
handwork,
geometrics.
geometric,
Yeah.
and of course, like, uh, um, unity of the whole while, like, not showing she's, like, doing a whole, like, "And we're, like, obscuring what the nature of the thing is," without saying that, of, like, this is the work speaks to the unity of the whole while, like, hiding its, like, inner meaning or beauty or whatever, or, like, hinting at
Yeah.
its inner beauty rather than hiding. We're not saying hiding, we're just saying, like, You know, it's in there somewhere. We don't need everyone to
Yeah.
know it's in there somewhere.
Yeah, I think the word discreet gets a lot of
Oh
use.
yeah, discreet gets a lot of use, I think. Yes.
Yeah. Um,
Mhm.
the old-fashioned term of sub rosa
Mm-hmm.
comes out a few times, which is a term for, discreet and not being talked about and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's
Um,
I'd be a Latin nerd for a minute.
Go for it.
It literally means under the rose, and so it was a secret meeting place where you put a rose above an archway, and meeting sub rosa and slash discreetly would be meeting under the rose. Um, that's it. That's my momentary Latin nerdery.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite little things.
Yeah. But yeah.
Um,
Mhm.
yeah, but it's all of that.
Mhm.
Um, it very much like, oh,
Mhm.
oh, I understand. You're looking for,
Mhm.
you know, and it's also it's yes. So what you end up with at the end of this part of the conversation is
Mhm.
that there is a stack of your sketches
Mhm.
that are now next to a smaller, tighter stack of sketches that Isaiah made.
Yeah.
And he's one of these assholes that can like draw a perfect circle by hand.
Mm.
Um, and it's just imagine, if you will, those classic, um, like almost feathery, where it's a bunch of the tiny little lines. It's that style.
Mhm.
In my reference, there's a lot of like traditional blacksmith work that's done with that kind
Mhm.
of back and forth brushstroke style with a graphite pencil.
Mhm.
Um, but so he has a stack of things, and you do see that there's a couple of, you like what you're seeing because now you can see it drawn with a professional hand,
Yes.
and you're like, yes, I like the way that looks. Now yeah.
Yeah. It's like, yes, I didn't just make a weird choice in my brain. That's good. Great. And so once
Yeah.
those are done, and then she's like, I also have something a little bit more experimental that I think is a truly thrilling challenge that you might be interested in attempting to undertake for me. And then she hands over the necklace design.
Isaiah looks at it. I mean, he looks at it for like a half of a second and just
Uh-huh.
hands it to his father. He's
Hmm.
like, nope.
Yep, that's the dad
I'm
one, and it
I'm gonna
definitely
drop back 10 yards and punt. Um,
definitely has like these little things where like she's tried to draw like they're not actually called explosions, but when you like expand out in a square to like see something in more detail. I cannot remember the
yeah,
actual word for it. But anyway, like a bunch of those where she like has other like the things. So like the some of the specific like flattened squares or chunks are big, more largely drawn to like show off some of the detail and things that she's attempting. So there's a lot of like notes and script. Like this part is like this is how it's laid out, and then there's like arrows and scribbles and like notes in a corner.
yeah. Um,
The whole idea down.
so he pulls out the glasses
Mhm.
now because he's now just no longer advising his son. Now he's engaged.
Yes.
So he gets the half glasses down and he hangs them like right off the edge of his nose. Um, and he starts looking. But one of the first things he does is he like takes his pinky and he catches, and you can hear the paper. He like catches his pinky nail on a little something on the paper,
Uh-huh.
and he like scratches at it, and he gives you one of those smiles that's like all in his eyes.
Uh-huh.
It's or like his mouth is smiling, but all of the emotion is in the way his eyes kind of crinkle almost shut.
Mhm.
It is a smile of remembering,
Mhm.
of like it's a good memory smile, and he looks at you and he says, um, "Your papa pushed too hard on the compass too." He always every time he drew one of his little circles, it could always left a little pinprick in the paper. Always pushed too hard. Just, one of those moments.
Mhm.
And he goes over it and he's, oh, excuse me. It has been a long day. He says, like, essentially what he says is, I think that I can make this.
Mhm.
These things, I believe, will work the way we all expect them to, because these are things that we have made before. I recognize them, at least in theory.
Yes.
And they look like things that your father has requested. The metals requirements, the way they must be made, all of these things are not new. So
Correct.
we are confident that whatever you expect to have happen,
Mhm.
you're going to get it out
Yes.
of these. Like, we're fully confident in these.
Mhm.
On this one, he says, he's like, we can make it,
Mhm.
but I cannot promise you anything more than an exact replication of what you have designed.
And Bethany nods with like, I completely understand. Like,
So yeah, so he goes over it, and it's interesting because the questions that they ask are questions that Bethany did not consider because of her lack of experience.
mhm.
But now they ask a question and Bethany goes, oh, opens up one of her father's notebooks and says, that's what the hell this
Me.
shorthand over here is about.
Okay.
Oh, okay. Yeah. It's like, oh, okay, these engraving tools have to be made out of this and they have to be made out of this.
Mhm.
And, this is going to cost this much extra money because once you use the engraving tools for this part, they have to be thrown away.
Yeah.
They have to be used for making these sets of symbols, and then they have to be destroyed because you can't
Yeah.
use them for the other part.
Yeah.
And this has to be as thus, and this has to be as thus, and
Mhm.
like the art of metal inlay,
Yeah.
the process of getting a little piece of metal inside another piece of metal and making it
Yeah.
stay there is not simple.
No.
It is a whole thing, and Bethany knows a great deal more about that process at the end of this meeting than she did
Mhm.
at the beginning.
Yes. Mhm.
So,
Yeah.
I'm tired.
Mhm.
It's
Time
time to
happened.
be tired.
Yeah.
Yeah, time passed.
Time
Here
passed.
I was worrying that we weren't going to have a really long session here with the two of us. What a fool I am.
Oh, no.
Um, so yeah, all the Van Horsts have a trait on their character booklet that says money is no object.
Yep.
So money is no object. So like financially it's significant.
Yes.
It's custom pieces like this and paying for like custom tools to be made out of exactly the right thing and da 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 da. Like that's
Yep.
not cheap, but
No.
for the amount of money that the Van Horsts had, it's essentially negligible.
Mhm.
There is a piece of you that goes, once we figure out how to make Metropolitan steel, I
Mhm.
wonder what kind of engraving tools. Like, I wonder if I gave
If I
these
could
guys
use some engraving
some
tools.
engraving tool blanks, what they could, like, what would they think of it?
Yes. She definitely files that away in her mind.
Yeah.
It's gonna be a request.
Yeah, totally. And that
Mhm.
might, like, in terms of design, they're very easy to make. We use engraving tools at work. It's just a matter of you can make them by hand if you're willing to go slightly insane about it.
Mhm.
But yeah, I mean, it's a delightful conversation. There's a there is a little bit where the old man sees the tennis bracelet
Mm-hmm.
and kind of breaks into a big grin, asks to see it, looks at it, requests, may I take this? Can I take this off? Takes it off, looks at it, finds like a nanoscale piece of dirt on it, and gives it to his son and is like, go clean this.
Yeah.
He says, of course, and he kind of gets up and he walks away. And the elder turns to you and says, I'm so sorry about your father.
Thank you.
We haven't had a chance to speak since he passed, but he cared a very great deal about you and your siblings. He would always... It seems like he didn't... Seems like he never really found a place to brag about all of you. But every so often, whenever we would make something for him, for one of you, he always took the time out to say something nice. Mostly about how fast you all are growing. And no parent is ready for their children to be older. One day they're born and then they're 10 and then they're married. You wonder what happened, but Malice was a lot. He was a very complicated man, and he lived a complicated life. And I'm sure that was a complicated house to grow up in.
He left us a legacy that is still unfolding.
That's very polite of you. He kept us in business. He gave us a fairly sizable loan. When we used to make jewelry for the Phoenix Society as well. And we were not told, but we were informed that if we were to continue providing Malice with custom pieces, that they would no longer be entertaining our services. And what they didn't think about is how much I don't like the idea of someone telling me that there's a person that I shouldn't be doing business with anymore. That's not... I'm not the kind of person that when someone comes around and says he's the wrong kind of person, you shouldn't let him in here anymore. That's... It's not the kind of place I run. It's not the way I raised my sons. And so, but it hurt. There was a lot of business that the Phoenix Society gave us. And their disapproval spread. We were officially a jeweler that one did not do business with for a while, until the Phoenix Society kind of lost enough of their edge to their bad mouthing to not stick as much anymore. But I remember one day he showed up to pick up a couple of pieces of jewelry. I think something for Matthew. Maybe something for the girls too. I think it was the the hair clips.
Oh, yes, I remember those.
Yeah.
Mm.
But normally
Swear.
Malice paid cash.
Mm-hmm.
It's just not that there was anything, untoward happening, but it was his nature to pay cash
Mm-hmm.
whenever he could. But this time he said, can you take a check? And I was worried because I thought that when he asked me if I could take a check, that meant that he expected it to bounce, that he was either going to choose not to pay us or something was going to happen. But you can't. What are you going to do? Tell Malice Van Horst that you're not going to take his check? It is like I couldn't do it. I couldn't do anything. But when so he had it in an envelope and he took it out and it was already all sealed up with Welker and Sons written on it. And he took the jewelry and he left, of course. I didn't open it for 2 days because I didn't want to know. Yeah, I didn't want to know. I didn't want the bad things that I thought were in there to be true. So I thought if I could ignore it long enough that, I don't know, something would happen. But, bills are bills and mortgages are mortgages and taxes are taxes. And, the kids never stop eating. They outgrow all of their damn shoes and all of their damn pants. And, you cut out the hems and you stretch them out a little bit and you try to, but they just kept growing all the time. And and after 2 days, I realized that whatever was in there, I just needed it. I needed to get the check in the bank and I needed to get, whatever money was in there moving. And whenever I opened it, it was that son of a bitch. Pardon me. It was the amount for the jewelry and the rest for the building. It wasn't enough to buy us, but it was enough to help to get our feet back under us, It was more than we could have ever asked for. It was more that. And the thing that gets me to this day is how the hell he got how much I owed on this building out of my bank. I was more mad at the banker. I was more mad at the bank than I was at your father. He was just doing what he did, but it was and I called the bank and I said, who one of you told Van Horst how much I owed on this building? Who showed him my mortgage paperwork? And it was all clutched pearls and, sir, of course we would not divulge such personal information for us. But what am I, what am I supposed to do? Yell at him for talking to Santa Claus? But the thing was, it wasn't so much that we didn't have to work. It was just enough that we could work,
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, yeah. Well, whatever you need, whatever idea you have, we'll do everything we can to make it happen.
Thank you. And I absolutely understand that you will be making my idea physical, and whether or not it works is entirely whether or not my idea works, not your craftsmanship.
I've I've had to do some repairs more than once on your father's work. There was a couple of things there were a couple of things that he was a little bit sloppy in his design. And yeah. One of them burnt right into the table. It was I don't know what it was. He never told me. It happened at the house. All I know is he bought a piece. He brought it back 2 days later. He was in a bad mood. He had a bandage on his left hand. And he needed it repaired, and he needed a minor alteration made. But whatever it was, it got hot. So I don't know what he did, and I don't want to know what he did, but whatever he did, he got it. He got that piece of metal hot.
Well, this is the first time that I have tried to design something like this, so I'm excited to see what happens.
Whatever you're gonna do with it, don't do it on linoleum.
Okay.
And then his son comes back with your freshly cleaned, tennis bracelet. He puts it back, and he puts it back on, and he turns your hand over, and he pats your hand,
Yeah.
Kind of does the, say hi to your brother, wish your sisters well.
I will.
Anything they need, da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Okay.
Bring the house when I can expect them to be ready, and essentially send the bill to Matthew, because I don't think it was like, does Bethany get to have a checkbook? She is a woman, and it's not yet the 70s, so I don't think she does. Even though she's a Van Horst, but she can't just say send the bill to Matthew, and that's fine.
I imagine that send the bill to Matthew is probably what's right.
Yes, I think she'd do that anyway, but I was like, I don't think she doesn't know what it's going to be anyway, so.
No, well, I think she's allowed. I think it would be reasonable for her to have a checkbook, but I think the checkbook would be Matthew's.
That's yeah. I think that yes would be what that is.
Yeah. But either way, it's going to be a bill to Matthew.
A bill to Matthew, and we'll get paid. Yeah.
So yeah, they're just two jewelers. And so they wish you very well and do all of the appropriate social things.
I think after that, Bethany's like, "Oh, that went very well. Let's go have, I don't know, go to conference, do something fun." She's going to go have a fun afternoon in the city now.
Yeah, go get a pastry somewhere.
Yeah, go get a pastry.
Yeah, I'm sure. So yeah, David happily takes you anywhere you want.
Yeah.
He's like, David's not the most mentally incisive person. Like he has a high situational awareness, but his emotional awareness isn't great.
Yeah.
He has hypervigilance, not a well-developed emotional set.
Yes.
But it is clear that David is very happy at the idea of Bethany going, you know what? I'm not ready to go home yet. Let's go do something else.
Yeah.
And he seems extremely happy at the idea. No, he never says anything incorrect.
Right.
But he also, in the entire course of however long this little like pleasure of independence Bethany is enjoying right now. He never ever says it's time to go home.
Yeah, I think Bethany is the one where it's like it was like, oh, it's getting late, which will happen when they come out of some store or something and the sky is changing or has changed color. Like they've been in the city like all afternoon and it is now like dusk. And also it's department stores, and department stores stopped having windows and kept all the lights the same so you didn't know what time it was in them. So you'll stay there forever. So it is like honestly a surprise of like, oh, it's like time happened.
Yes.
You know, one, it's been a lovely time, but two, time happened. And going, oh, it's gotten late. We should go home for dinner. Like
the only thing that David does at that moment is he just raises his eyebrows at you. In it, not in a judgmental way, but you know how someone like, you know how you're like out with your friends and you go, what I really want is a piece of coconut cream pie.
Yeah.
And they raise their eyebrows at you like, is there a good reason that you don't?
Yeah.
It's that kind of like gently empowering eyebrow raise of like, do you need to go home for dinner?
Yeah, no, she does,
you know?
she does it that way. Like, no, it's very cute. She's like, oh, maybe one more something, and like off to one more store before they go home, or off to like one little cafe for like a pastry or a bite or a coffee or a something. Probably,
and it is,
and I like, oh, just
and it is
Hmm.
in that moment that in some undefinable way, Sophia has passed on you to David. In that I'm going to empower you, but not with words.
Yeah.
You know, but that, you know, that very genteel of just like, go. You know, just go enjoy, just go live.
Yeah.
You know, that there's that either deliberately or inadvertently David has picked up that same kind of affection through service sort of language.
And then also on the way home, but in like a sort of happy, chattery way, Bethany is like sort of talking to David, but sort of talking to herself that like she needs to find an almanac and look up when the next full moon is. And there's going to be a thing that she needs to do at the driveway gate. We should probably walk there. And David, I'd like you to come. Like it's in very much the way that David got dragged around by the red lady to go do weird magic shit, but instead now he's getting dragged around by Bethany to go do weird magic shit and go, and we'll, you know, ask Clara and Matthew. I'll ask Clara and Matthew if they're coming too, but Matthew, I don't know if he's sleeping well. And so she's like cataloging all these small things, and you know, Clara might be feeling unwell these days, so it might just, you know, whatever. But she's going to essentially sometime in the coming days also go ward the front gate of the property in such a way of intentions that the front gate is there and then the like giant stone walls that are around it, so that that's the whole thing, so centered at the gate as the entry broken point, against uninvited things animated by Metropolis magic, essentially being like, the homunculus are not allowed in here.
Yeah.
If they try to come and want to interview me for any reason, they're going to be stopped at the gate, and things of their ilk that are potentially looking for me are going to be unallowed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. We'll worry about that later.
Yeah, I can get
I
worried
feel
about
like
later.
we're gonna need to think about the way that works and is worded, because
Mhm.
it's, even though I don't think it'll come up right now, as soon as I say,
Us.
it works, it's
Then
gonna come up, and then we're gonna have a full stop
thing.
troubleshoot later.
Yes, exactly.
Um, it, David, like most drivers, has developed that ability just to go, yep, okay, yeah, just not consistently, but just enough that, you know,
Mhm.
say, I'm listening. I know you're not really talking to me.
Mhm.
Like, I know that you are kind of using me as you know, as a literal sounding board,
Mhm.
but I also know that, the occasional yup and the occasional is what I'm supposed to do.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But there are a couple of pauses where David does look in the rearview mirror and give you a happy look. Like, it's not a smile, and his face doesn't really move,
Mhm.
but there's like just a tiny one wrinkle
Mhm.
crinkle
Mhm.
around his eyes, you
Yeah.
know,
Mhm.
where David is happy that you're happy.
Yeah.
And I think this will be cute.
Mhm.
One of the stores, David, you tell David to follow you because you know you're going to be buying things.
Yes. Oh,
Like,
definitely.
like
There's
come
definitely
in because
a
you're going
point
to
of
be
time
carrying boxes and bags.
that yeah, that it definitely happens at least once.
David is astoundingly out of his element. Like, on every possible level, David is not in his comfort zone inside the women's section of a very fancy department store. This is not where he is. He is supposed to be. But at one point, there's accessories like scarves and hats and gloves and things like that.
Mhm.
Um, and David, in his own very awkward, very weird, halting sort of way, kind of tries to say to you, do you think the red lady would like that? Like, he's clearly, it's not that he's like, it's not the discomfort of judgment,
Mhm.
it's the like, this is all very weird and I don't want to do anything wrong. And if this was a normal heteronormative relationship,
Mhm.
this would be the thing that I think I'm supposed to do. I think you're supposed to say, doesn't that look like something you want to get your person?
Mhm.
And he does it completely wrong. Like, like it's the wrong size, it's the wrong color, like it's the wrong everything. They're like opera gloves or something. Logistically, it's an abject failure. Like, absolute, just
Yeah.
drove the plane right into the ground.
Mhm.
But, you know, the theory is sound.
Yeah.
And, you know, probably something like, David, those are opera gloves.
Yeah.
And for just for a second, he gets indignant at you,
Uh-huh.
and he goes, "You think you two can't go to an opera?" like, like there's almost like a fuck you mean. Can't go to but
Mhm.
he's he is trying,
Yeah.
and that's probably the thing that matters more than the logistics of it. But
Yeah, it's
you know,
definitely that with like Bethany pulling out some sort of like silk scarf from like the thing next over that is much more in her like the Red Lady's color palette and all the things, and going, I was thinking this instead.
His answer is like super male. It's like, well, if you think it's the right thing, then it's the right thing. One of those like full United Nations like non-aggression treaty language, you know, very language Tai Chi, redirect the energy away from you. But it's there and gone, you know. It's 30 seconds, but it's there and gone. And then he, you know, almost like you can almost watch him subsume his own personality into the service mask. Not that he's upset, but he's just like, all right, I said a thing, now I'm just gonna fade.
Yeah.
You know, now Miss Bethany is just gonna kind of want to walk up and down the aisles and the racks and, you know, touch things and look at them and do girl in a department store stuff. And I'm just gonna stay like 2 items away, unobtrusive, until she hands me something.
The stack of things gets higher and higher and higher.
Yes. But yeah, it's it's a very pleasant day out.
Yes.
And I think, unless there's something else you want to do, I kind of want to leave Bethany on that high point.
Oh, this is great. Yeah.
I'd like to just have the camera have the camera pull away from Bethany, like happily shopping.
Yes.
You know, not even like just independently shopping. You know, in the store she picked, looking at the clothes she likes.
Yep.
You know, David is absolutely not the person that you want with you when you try things on.
No.
Because like his responses range from literal sputtering wordlessness, like an actual like you know, up to, you know, the extremely non-committal, like, it looks like you picked the right size, you know. You know, or, you know, it seems very complimentary. You know, that kind of thing. But that's David, you know. He's got opinions on things, but none of them involve satin.
No.
Yeah. But yeah. So it's a nice quiet night, and he puts you in the car and then locks the car and then puts the packages in the car and then unlocks the car. Like, when the sun went down, David's paranoia did spike.
Yeah.
There's a little bit of hyperprotectiveness, but, you know, not wrong.
Not wrong.
So, yeah. But the drive home is nice, and you chatter away happily, and yeah. It was a good little day. Nice little piece of downtime. Yeah. So, you know, according to tradition, now we'll have you know, next time we record, we'll have a scene with Matthew and Clara, and they will do something really fucking stupid. They will absolutely depth charge Bethany's mood, which is
day out.
Yeah. But this was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
One of the things that I have developed over the last couple of years is a deep enjoyment of slice of life.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I if you told me at like 25 that I would be like deeply invested in slice of life LARPing and role play, I would be like, go fuck yourself. Like I want monsters and treasure, damn it. But you know, now at 41, I'm like, yeah, let's go to fucking Boscov's. It'll be great. So yeah.
Mhm.
So a good little night, and we'll see what kind of amulets Bethany designed
Yeah.
and how well they work.
Yeah.
Because we're gonna stress test them at some point, because this is
Oh,
still a cult game and this is still Wrath and Tears. So
uh-huh.
everything's gonna get put through their paces.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think that's it for us. Is there anything you want to say as we close out? All right. Once again, forever and always, thank you to Curtis, our the Demiurge, for making all of this work. We thank you for everything that you've done. I don't know if you're going to see it tonight, but Curtis has done some fantastic. Um, he's done some really great stuff, some really impressive stuff, some technically demanding stuff. He's put a lot of time and effort into it, and he's got some ideas that I think are going to be pretty exciting. So, yeah. Um, you know, thankful for you, Curtis, and we're glad you're here, and we're glad we're here. So I think that's going to be it for Wrath and Tears tonight. Remember to take care of yourselves, take yourselves to a department store, eat a pastry, and yeah, be kind. And yep, that's it. So thank you very much, and we will see you probably in 2 weeks. All right.